Hello, it is July 8th, and the Guild Wars 2 team has published the blog post From the Wilds to What's Next. I'm a bit late to the draw. Work was crazy today, but I'm here now. I've got a mug of water, and let's dive into this. There's a lot of things that I'm really excited about in here. One of these things I've been asking for quite a long time, and I'm super happy to see it here, even though I don't think it's going to make all players extremely happy. So, they acknowledge the difficulties of the GW2 Wilds storyline and pacing issues and stuff like that, as well as maps and everything. And they also mention that Push is coming out later this summer, which is exciting. And we hope it sets a precedent for future community-driven efforts, which I really like the idea of this. I enjoy that back and forth from the community and developers. I think it builds a healthier game system overall. You're never going to please every single person out there. You just can't. It's mathematically impossible. But I do think it results in a better product for everyone, right? As long as that's done correctly, like what they did with Push, and it's not like some game companies where they introduce a feature and it's just bare bones and the beta test is just actually them pushing it live, right? Actual testing is great. So with the next expansion, we're refining that structure to update more, to give each update more depth and impact. The first quarterly release after the expansion's launch will not include new story or map content. Instead, it will focus on updates to core systems and long-standing features. This approach gives us space to revisit foundational elements of the game, improvements that support the long-term health of Guild Wars 2, and reflect the design philosophy outlined in the Building Smarter, Not Bigger section below. I was just talking about this last Saturday in my live stream. I think I talked about it the week before and the week before that. I have thought for a long time that Guild Wars 2 needed like a Cataclysm-style World of Warcraft Cataclysm expansion, where they can blow things up, they can rework things, they can work it in, whatever. I don't think they're going to blow Central Tyria up and completely change everything. I think that's a little out of scope for one expansion that got delayed by 3 months, right? That's not really enough time. But reworking core systems. There are a lot of core systems in Guild Wars 2 that aren't really ideal. They show their age. The game's from 2012. This stuff happens. Game design moves on. And I think this is great. I'm really hoping that we see some reworks to things like the LFG system. I would absolutely love an LFG system like FF14 or World of Warcraft where I can just queue up for something and actually go do it. I don't hate group content, but one of the reasons I don't do group content in Guild Wars 2 is just I honestly don't enjoy that old school method of like trying to wrangle a group together, right? I play Lord of the Rings Online too. It's in there as well, and I don't like it in that game either. It's not my favorite thing. I acknowledge that it had a time and place and that it can build more community bonds than Dungeon Finder, like click a button and get in there kind of things. But quite frankly, like not all of us have the time or energy all of the time to want to do that. And being able to just open something up, hit the Q button, and then like go craft while you're waiting or whatever, and then come back, I think would be wonderful. I think there's a lot of other things that they can update too. The second and third quarterly updates are going to be focusing on story and map development so that they're more robust and satisfying. They will introduce a larger, more content-rich map and a longer, more fully developed story than what players saw in the equivalent GW2 Wilds updates. While the total amount of story across the expansion is increasing modestly, the bigger benefit is how much more meaningful each individual release will feel. Yeah, and I get that. I think one of the things that has thrown some people off, and I'm not saying criticisms are unwarranted, but when we stretch out one expansion of content, right? Like I remember getting an expansion back in the day and I would like take a day or two off from work and go into it or be super excited to play and come home after school or whatever, and just digging into it. And when they're smaller like they have been, even if we're getting a similar size expansion, whether it's released all at once or, through quarterly updates, Like the smaller chunks make it feel smaller than it is even because you don't have like all of it to go through. You don't get that satisfying binge. Like you get an hour, not an hour, but like 3 hours maybe going through the zone, doing some meta events, finishing up the story, and you're done. And it just, I think it does a disservice to the story sometimes too, because I don't think it has a chance to build up quite some of that tension. I think if done correctly, it can build more tension, but it's a difficult balance, right? So I do look forward to this. I am interested in it. I know not everybody's going to be super excited, pumping their fists like, woo, yeah, baby. But like, I think these things need to be done. I think these core systems do need to be revisited, you know, and they mention in the building smarter, not bigger section. I'm not going to go through all of this, but they talk about the fact that they're trying to streamline overlapping features, reduce technical debt, which I'm going to assume is like back-end performance issues and complexity, and, you know, maybe even on the front end, as they mention a couple here, right? This complexity doesn't just slow us down behind the scenes, it also makes onboarding harder for new and returning players, even in areas designed for seasoned adventurers like endgame PvE. So, like what they did with the Wizard's Vault system, I loved. The homesteads and decorations were cool. You know, I'm not the biggest like homestead decorator guy. Especially the Warclaw and the Skyscale, I think were huge things to help new players get caught up to speed with veteran players, like be able to compete in movement between events and stuff like that. Because if you don't have a mount, it can be pretty brutal. I've seen it firsthand. So yeah, and they're reassuring us that the support for the newly introduced features is not going to end at launch. You can expect to see continued homestead support in the next expansion, which I love. You know, and they mentioned these kinds of changes may not always grab headlines, but they make the game easier to understand, maintain, and more enjoyable to play. Yeah, I completely agree, right? New tricks for every trade. Let's get into the juicy stuff. Secrets of the Obscure introduced new weapon proficiencies and all that sort of stuff, right? And then land spears coming in. But here we go. With our next expansion, we're taking the next step. Everybody saw it coming. Elite specializations are making a return, this time designed to work together with the flexible build crafting system we've been refining over the past few years. However, these new specializations won't come with dedicated weapons. I called that wrong. I figured, honestly, they might, but in my small defense, I did point out that we're kind of running low on logical weapons to bring in, right? Instead, each one introduces unique profession mechanics, a new trait line, utility skills, an elite skill, and distinct playstyles without locking you into a specific weapon or equipment loadout, which I do appreciate because at times it is a little frustrating when that elite spec just really only works well with a certain type of weapon. Otherwise, you may as well not even play it. So I am really excited to see elite specs coming back. I mentioned that in my previous video. Yeah, I'm just really excited for it. In the Challenging the Challengers segment, they talk about expanding endgame content, introducing new encounters, complete with challenge and legendary modes. But just as important as adding more is making the content better, more approachable, and more rewarding to return to. Ho ho ho. In the first quarterly release of our next expansion, that means unifying raids and strike missions into a more consistent structure, improving onboarding for new players, reworking parts of the UI, streamlining rewards, and investigating in systems that help group content feel easier to step into and more meaningful to stick with. I really hope that means LFG changes. I really, 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 really want LFG changes. ArenaNet, please. If you're there, hear me. In June, we had Absolution Dragon Bash. July, expansion announcement coming up. Return to Soto, World vs. World bonus rush event. I guess it's time to get my freaking gifts of battle, isn't it, gamers? And then August, we've got Festival of the Four Winds and PvP Push beta event coming out. So what comes next? You'll get your first look at the expansion on July 15th. Love it. I'm so excited. And P.S. Thanks for reading this far. Here's another teaser for your troubles. I'm sorry, Josh Davis. I'm spoiling it. They didn't read. I did. But look at this. That is a Paragon, and that is Warrior Colors. I'm going to be a Char with wings, mother truckers. And I don't know what's going on with that Necromancer. I guess it's a Revenant elite spec for Necromancer. I don't know, man. It looks cool, though. It looks really cool. I am interested in it. I am very interested in it. Super excited to see Paragon. Well, I mean, it may not be called Paragon, right? But whatever this is, looks dope. If I can grow wings, I'm so there. I'm loving it. Well, and I'm leaning towards Paragon because that spear, I didn't play Guild Wars 1, but that looks a lot like the same vibes that Paragon had in Guild Wars 1, if I recall correctly. I think they were from like Alona, and that spear is giving me big Alona vibes. Anyway, that's what I've got for you guys today. I'm really excited for these changes, man. I am looking forward to the expansion first look next week. Definitely going to be talking about that, and I'm going to be preparing a separate video as far as how to help prepare for expansions as we come up on that new expansion. I should hopefully be able to get that out next week. I'm running out of hours in the day for everything I need to do here lately, and hopefully I have some other incredible announcements that I can't quite talk about yet coming soon. But thank you all for watching. If you're curious about my general weigh-in on Elite specs before this announcement and what I was discussing as far as the future of Guild Wars 2, you can click this video right here. But I'll be honest, might be a little outdated now, even though it's only a couple days old.